Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome to Tekpon. Today our guest is Pritesh, the VP of Marketing and Growth at Sprinto. Hello.
Hey, Christian. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you on the podcast finally. At first, for anybody that doesn't know, please tell us what is Sprinto.
Yeah. Sprinto is a B2B SaaS platform that operates in the compliance automation space. Uh, what is the first thing when people think of compliance? It's usually a very grunge expression that comes to your mind, right? Something
Yes.
that you want to get rid of, something
Yes.
that you want someone else to do and not having to deal with yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And the main reason is there's a lot of busy work or grunt work involved in getting your compliance. So Sprinto automates the busy work or even eliminates the busy work that's associated with getting your security compliance in place. And that's a simple one-line statement of what Sprinto is up to and what do we do.
Okay, that's great. And what is the biggest problem that you solve? Is it compliance made easy, or how do you put it?
Yeah. It's automating the compliance journey, automating the busy work, automating the grunt work involved in compliance.
How does it work? How do you solve this problem?
Uh-huh. So in traditionally, when you have to get a compliance, security compliance like SOC 2 or ISO,
Yes.
what you would need to do in the old ages is have the main work that's involved is to chase people is in understanding what are the requirements of the compliance itself. Like SOC 2 has a list of 150 requirements,
Okay.
or somewhere around that, right? So each framework has their own set of requirements that you need to meet if you want to get certified. And for each of these, you need to understand what's involved in what are the requirements of that framework. And
Yes.
second is around gathering evidence so that you can show that you are meeting those requirements. And gathering evidence, both of these aspects: A, understanding what is required by the framework, and B, chasing people to get evidence to show that no, you are doing what you are promising that you want to do in order to stay compliant with that framework. They involve a lot of work, and traditionally all of this has been done on paper. So
Wow.
it's not just one person doing it, right? It's in a compliance, it's your entire organization. You may have to work with 4 or 5 teams, 7 teams across the organization to get the work done. It
Wow.
means the person who is responsible for compliance has to chase all of these teams to get the evidence which they can finally show to the auditor, uh, and get the certification that is required, right? So all of this grunt work that used to exist, we are automating close to 90% of that, so that this person who's responsible for compliance um, can go ahead and work on more strategic things rather than running behind people to gather evidence.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And usually, what's your target company? How many employees and what industries?
So we work across segments.
Mm-hmm.
We go after SMBs and mid-market
Okay.
companies. We go after both of these segments, and we are kind of industry agnostic. There is affluence to certain industries, but the way we like to categorize it is tech first company or digital native companies. So companies either selling software as a service, or companies who rely on cloud software to run their business. So cloud software is an essential component of their business. So these are two way we define the industry or vertical.
Okay, and do you have a favorite customer success story that you can share with us?
Oh, we have multiple of them. We built like more than 50 case studies on our website. They're all published on the
Wow.
website. But it's always heartening to hear when we keep getting these stories when they used to do in the previous avatar. It took them almost 9 to 12 months to get a compliance, and when they come to Sprinto, they get it done in 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
That's a massive lift that we
Yes.
enable, and that's what keeps us going. The second kind of stories that we keep hearing are how they were always getting blocked from new sales opportunities.
Yes.
They were
Yes.
not able to expand to new geographies because they were not compliant, and how being compliant at a fast pace and staying compliant without having to do so much of the legwork is allowing them to enter new markets or enter new opportunities which was previously not accessible to them. So these two stories are, we keep hearing them, and it's so heartening to see that we can help companies grow their business.
That's amazing. I know the not closing a deal because of compliance is a really big one. So yeah, it happens, but now it's easier to get it done. And how about the pricing? How does it work?
We have the pricing is based on it's a very simple model right now that we have. We have tried to keep this simple. It's based on the number of employees that you have in the organization, because everyone has to participate in a compliance program, and certain features depending on the stage of your organization. That's a very standard model. So it can start from roughly $3,000 and upwards, which is annual. It's not monthly, it's an annual. Traditionally, just to give you context, traditionally, you would have to pay up at least, even for the smallest of companies, you would have to pay at least $25,000 to get compliant. So we are breaking that barrier where any size of company can go ahead and get compliant and expand their business.
That's great. And how about the most loved features of the product? What would you say are the top three?
The first is the control mapping. So all of the frameworks have certain requirements, 100 odd requirements. Each framework would have 100 odd requirements or more. Right? We have programmed all the requirements, translated into human understandable language, and not the jargons that are specified in the framework documents. So we have pre-programmed them in the platform itself. That in itself is a huge lift, because now companies don't need to spend time to understand what are the requirements of a framework. We do the heavy lifting on that aspect. That's the first. The second is evidence collection, which is a big pain. So traditionally, compliance heads or people who was responsible for compliance, they would need to chase people to get evidence. And usually it's like running pillar to post during audit time. Everyone's running behind and chasing people, and it's a nightmare to deal with, honestly. And what we do is we plug into your systems and we continuously collect evidence, and not just collect evidence, but we also validate whether those evidences are helping you stay compliant or not. Right? And we map it to the requirements of the framework. So it gives you a very clear picture of how compliant are you in the journey. And the last piece, if I have to talk about the last piece, which is, typically softwares only think about one aspect of the user, which is either the end user and not necessarily all stakeholders. But we made a very conscious effort. We took a conscious effort of including and thinking about all stakeholders involved. So all said and done, you can have all the evidences running, you can have all the controls running. But at the end of the day, the auditor is going to validate. He's the beholder. He's the judge. He's the executor. And if you do not give him an easy way to audit, it's going to become a nightmare for you yourself. So we did think about the auditor side of things, and we built a special portal for auditors who can easily access all the evidence in the way they are used to access. So we actually work with auditors. We spend a lot of time in ensuring that we can streamline their work, because if their work is streamlined, ultimately the company gets to benefit as well, because they have to spend less time during audit. So these are three key things that we bring to the table.
Absolutely amazing. Congratulations. I love it. But I'm curious to know on quick questions. If a company fails an audit, how long do they have to wait until they apply again?
Well,
in general, let's say, not to. I was just curious.
I'll just take an example of SOC 2.
Yes.
Let's say there's a notion of passing and failing, but what really happens is when you go for an audit, there are certain aspects of things that you're doing well, and there are certain aspects which you aren't doing well on. So the auditor would highlight the aspects that you need to rework, or they would red flag and say that these are the things that are not aligning with the requirements of SOC 2. So you'll need to go back, and you can start immediately. There's no cool off period, but you can technically you can start immediately, fix all the gaps that have been identified by the auditor, and go back, do the mandatory waiting period. In SOC 2 it is 3 months, and
Okay.
gather evidence that you have fixed all the defects that are found. You have fixed all those defects, and go for an audit again. But
Okay.
we recommend typically take at least 6 months, so that you have enough evidence, you have time to fix the
Yes.
gap, and then go for an audit.
But just so people understand, this is a continuous process. So you get audited multiple times, or how does it work?
So every framework has their own requirement.
Mhm.
SOC 2 requires you to be audited annually.
Okay.
ISO needs just once in 3 years. There are other frameworks like PCI, which require you to do a different process. But this is just one part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And contrary to popular belief, like, there are laws, privacy laws like GDPR, HIPAA, all of those, they are self-attested. They don't need you to be audited, but they are self-attested. So you can, if you want, you can get away with it, but honestly, it's not worth the risk. If a regulator catches you, you'll be in trouble. So every framework or every law has their own rules of how they want to do things.
Thank you so much for explaining. And now I know the compliance space is really competitive. So please tell us how you differentiate from the rest.
Yeah, this is a sort of a common question, and the best part is, we embrace competition, because it's a positive signal that the industry is growing. There's enough meat in the market, and it gives us confidence that we are on the right path. So coming to the specific question, the pace at which things are developing, something that I may say is a differentiator today in terms of product or features, honestly may not be relevant just one quarter down the line. That's the pace at which the industry is evolving. But philosophically or fundamentally, what we believe in, we double down on ensuring customer success. We have the best rate of customer experience or customer success to customers. That's the amount of emphasis that we place. For us, it's 1:40. One CSM would only manage 40 accounts, whereas for competitors, it is usually 3 times or 5 times. So they'll have one rep for more than 150 or 100 customers. So customer success is where we really shine, stand out. The other aspect where we really stand out is the hand-holding part of it. Because compliances are complex, most people don't understand what are the requirements for me to meet this compliance program. That's where our CSM come into the picture. They will handhold you through the process and tell you, this is what it means, this is what you need to do. If you need help, and if you have an internal expert team, we can just be a sounding board for you. But these are two aspects. I don't want to bore you with feature differentiations.
Yes, of course. No, it's a great answer.
Where we try and stand out, apart from various other.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I know you're a founding team member, so maybe can you please tell us the founding story of the company, of Sprinto?
Sure. So Girish and Raghu, they are the co-founders of Sprinto. Before this, they had another startup called Recruiter Box, which was in the HR tech space. So we had nothing to do with cyber, by the way. It was in a completely different space. But during their journey, when they were trying to sell to larger companies, they were getting asked for compliance. And at that point of time, they did manage to get through it. But the amount of time that it took, the amount of work that was involved in getting compliance, it just seemed insane.
Yes.
It just did not make sense.
Yeah.
To the point they say that it was almost like the entire company came to a halt, right? And for a startup, that's a big deal, right? You're not shipping things, you're not selling. Time is a commodity, is a precious commodity, and you cannot afford to let go of that. So that was the genesis. So after they sold that startup, they realized that this is a very inefficient area which needs to be disrupted, and there is a lot of scope for automating it and bringing software into the mix to solve this problem. That's how Sprinto started. But they wanted to do a really good job of this in solving not just for the end user, but all stakeholders involved. So we took roughly 12 months just building the product, speaking to all the stakeholders in trying to make the product what it is today.
Great founding story. And right now, how big is the company in terms of people?
Right now, we are about 170 odd. I think
Wow.
we may be closing to 180. We are spread across the globe. We are a remote first company. Everyone's remote.
Wow.
We don't have an office anywhere. We have
Nice.
people in US, in Canada. A large chunk of that is in India because that's where it started. And the leadership team, some of the leadership team is also now moving to the US from India to support that market.
And when did you join the company exactly?
I joined in September 2021. That's just after 4 months of them going,
Okay.
4 months of them going live in the market.
Okay. So you are in that first 10, 20 employees?
Right. Yes.
Okay. Amazing. And how do you describe your culture? Or you grew a lot in 2 years.
Yeah. So there's a funny story, right? When I was not even considering a move to any company, especially not an early stage company, because I've been through early stage companies, have built that, and I know the grind that's involved in an early stage company. So I wanted to do something bigger, something
Okay.
large. But
Yes.
the conversations with Girish and Raghu, they turned out to be so so pleasant. They turned out to be so intriguing that I said, you know what, it's what's the harm? Let me give it 2 quarters. If I like this, because I believe what they were doing, if I like this, I may as well just continue. If not, those were the heydays of 2021, when if you throw your resume out in the market, there are potentially 20 companies who are looking to hire you. That's thankfully that's not the case now. But that's what started. 2 quarters turned to 2+ years. I'm still here. And I really enjoy the mission that we are on. We truly believe that we can make a difference. We have a real shot at being the market leaders in this category that we are. Some of the things that help us stand out as a company, and some of the things are first for me as well. In most of the companies, the general direction is top down. That some decision would be taken by the founder and then it's just percolating downstream, right?
Yes.
This company is different in the way that it's a very collaborative environment. It's not just the founders. There's a founding team which has been set up. It acts like an advisory or a committee board where all important decisions are taken collectively, and not just it's not just one person says something and everyone has to follow it. In fact, and it's not just limited to founding team. I'll give you an example. We are, and this goes to the second point, so I'll maybe take an example there. But we are a transparent company. We operate on Slack. All our channels, 99% of our channels on Slack are open. Anyone from any team can join any channel of any function. There are no restrictions. All conversations happen in open, whether they are whether we praise someone or we criticize someone, it all happens in the open. And that's a very unique culture or place to be in. It takes, trust me, it takes time to getting used to it. For people who are not used to, they may find it awkward, but it's a very pleasant thing to see. So we also have a culture of doing weekly updates, which is all hands. We have an all hands every week, where on the line of transparency, sorry, we share all our company updates in that time. And it's not just showing the good parts, but if something is not working well, we'll even talk about it. We believe in complete transparency and we share that information with everyone. Now, some of these weekly updates had started becoming mundane about sharing regular updates with the company. And we started seeing that the engagement is starting to dip with the weekly updates. Now we could have said, you know what, like we'll come up with some magical solution and just pass it to everyone. But we said no. I think there are 150 smart people in here. Let's take their collective wisdom and see how can we improve the process. So that's the level of collaboration that happens here. I'm just giving an example. I'm sorry if it's boring you, but I wanted to emphasize the why and how this is not what you would usually see in other startups.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and with the story, it's easier for people to understand. So don't worry, it's really good. And have you also raised some funding?
We are Series A funded. We are backed by Axel, Elevational, and Bloom.
Okay. And since joining the company 2 years ago, what would you say was your biggest challenge or your biggest mistake, biggest learning somewhere in that area?
When you spend 2 years in a startup, you're bound to make more mistakes than you would imagine.
Of course.
For me, personally, I think one of the things that I've very clearly learned is the value of clarity in the team. So there are two ways in which you can operate. You can say, "Yeah, this is what we hope to achieve," and you try and figure something out on the way. But that usually and you just leave the information at that. But what I've experienced is usually when I go ahead in that mode, it ends up in a disconnect between what is expected versus what needs to be done. And that's used to create friction between the teams. So what I've started doing is with every, at least I try to, I'm not perfect at this, but with every goal or every major goal that we would pick up, I'll try to be we'll first try to establish common ground on what is the problem that we are trying to solve and what is it that's expected
Yes.
from this exercise or from this goal. So, and doing this upfront solves for a lot of pain downstream. It ensures that both are aligned on the same page. Language is very funny. The way I would describe something can be interpreted in a very different way by someone else.
Yeah.
So this has been my one of the key learnings that I've had. There are many, but the importance of clarity and communication has been so immensely helpful for me. I cannot even emphasize.
That's a great one. Thanks for sharing. The next question will be, let's keep it short, but I know you have a long answers to this one because I saw your speech at SaaS Open. But how did you get your first customers?
At Sprinto?
Yes.
Okay. So the talk at SaaS Open was about my previous startup, which was a bootstrap journey.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for the.
Actually, and a bootstrap journey has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. But at Sprinto, honestly, it just started with tapping, reaching out, the usual method, reaching out to friends and family in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So India has an amazing, and I think it's one of the best, incredible SaaS ecosystem called SaaS Boomi, where founders pay it forward. Founders pay it forward and share their learnings, experience with other SaaS founders in the community.
Yes.
So it was easy for us to reach out to them and see if people are interested or people have this problem that they're looking to solve. That's how we got our first few customers. The second was, of course, since this is a second startup, so Raghu and Girish both have worked on another startup. They had some network built. They were able to reach out to them and get it. However, from going from 10 to 100 or hundreds, right now we have thousands of customers. But building a predictable pipeline, what really helped us accelerate, and the difference between the previous and this startup was the previous startup was bootstrapped, so we didn't have a lot of money to spend. But here, since we were funded, we were able to experiment faster, fail faster, and generate results faster. So one of the first things that we did is to start investing in paid media, which immediately helped us boost our customer acquisition. So it's very simple, no fancy story here.
Yeah.
The standard marketing playbook is what helped us the first.
Still, it's helpful. And I know you do a lot of events. So can you please talk about that? You are very visible on LinkedIn, attending a lot of conferences. So please tell us more on it.
Yeah. So Sprinto has been growing at a rapid pace. And what that means is usually we also need to, in order to increase our revenues at the goals that we are chasing, it would require us to constantly look at new avenues of customer acquisition. So while we were growing, and the way I like to think about this is, while we are growing well in certain segment, I know that we are going to hit a cap at some point of time. And so it's essential that we start investing much ahead of time before we hit the cap. And so field marketing is one of those events, one of those channels that we started investing in much sooner, and to ensure that we are ready when the time comes to leverage the results from field marketing. So the way we see field marketing is, honestly, we've split it into three buckets. And the first one is tofu type of events, which is purely to generate awareness. It's important to be visible. That's the first step. Customers will only trust you if they can see you or if they can find you.
Of course.
And that's one of the goals of field marketing. So we strategically choose events that help us get more visibility into the market in front of our audience. And that's the first step. The second is where we try and generate actual business from those events, which I call MOFU events, which help us get right in front of the target audience with the intended buyers, and not just everyone.
Like in front compliance of the events, let's say.
Yeah. Or events where our personas directly come, and they accept designations, and we try to sell to them. That's a great way to build funnel. And the last we call tofu events, BOFU events, BOFU.
Yeah, BOFU.
And that's whatever work we have done in tofu and MOFU. So whatever leads we have got, we run our own events where we try to convert the prospects that we have warmed up so nicely from previous events into, and try and push them into becoming our customers. So that's our play. Very simple. Nothing extraordinary.
It's amazing. No, it's amazing. Wow, it's amazing. What a great playbook. Okay, this will be a short. It's really great. And now on the personal side, I love to know your background story. So basically, how you started your career.
Oh, I'm an engineer. I'm a computer science engineer. And I started my journey with working in a multinational company as an engineer, as a software engineer. And honestly, I love programming. I love software engineering. If I get an opportunity, I would love to do that today. Although I don't have the skills that I used to have in programming, but I would still love to do that today. From early on, I've been very conscious or very attracted towards the business side of things. And that's what made me move from just being an engineer to business development and customer facing roles. After that, having worked in an MNC, I got literally, I was bored of what was coming at me. It was very challenging, but it didn't have the zeal or the excitement. So I took a leap of faith and joined a very, very early stage startup, pre-product market fit startup, SaaS startup. And ever since, I've been in startups. I've had my own startup as well. And to be honest, that's where I had to learn marketing, because it was my own startup.
Yes.
And I had to sell. So I had to learn marketing. So I'm not a natural marketeer.
Okay.
I'm an accidental marketeer. I'm more an entrepreneur than a marketeer, to be honest. I run with entrepreneurial instincts than marketing. I'm sure there are people who are much better than me in marketing. But I am an entrepreneur inclined marketeer. That's how I would like to call. And that's what I continue to do now.
Amazing. And I guess Sprinto allows you to have this entrepreneurial spirit and come up with innovative things. But I was curious to know your best piece of advice for, let's say, developers looking to learn sales and marketing and to start their own startup.
There's no honestly, there's no theoretical playbook around it. You just got to get straight into the action. Thankfully now, because of the advent of internet and the amount of information that's available online, you can easily look at the case studies of how a company grew from X to Y, or how a founder went from being an engineer to growing into a large organization. that you can easily tap into those resources and start learning. But honestly, the if I had to give one advice, just jump into it. You don't need to commit full time to it, but maybe if you're an engineer, if you're interested, it can be as simple as just asking someone in your marketing or sales team, can I help you in any way? Is there some help that I can give you? You'll be surprised how many people are understaffed or under resourced, and they always look for help. And that's like, you don't have to leave what you're doing. You can just go ahead and offer your help, and you'll be surprised what you can learn uh, about another field or another department just by a simple ask.
Great. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to mention today on the podcast before we close?
Yeah, I have to do the standard maybe pitch, but if you guys are looking to grow into new markets or looking to sell to larger customers, mid-market or enterprise, you'll often get asked about cyber compliance like
Yes.
SOC 2 or ISO, GDPR, HIPAA. And if you need help with that, if you want to avoid all the grunt work or all the busy work and are looking for an automated solution, please do reach out to Sprinto. It's sprinto.com. And I'm personally available and active on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to connect with me.
Thank you so much, Pritesh. You did fantastic, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Christian. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you for having me.